Hello, welcome to Human Tech, a podcast about humans, technology, and the intersection of human interaction and technology. Today is going to be a wonderful episode, a little bit about how humans work. With me, as always, is Dr. Susan Weinschenk. Hello.
Hi there.
And I am Guthrie. So, today we're going to do some human-y things, and we're going to talk about oxytocin and some other brain molecules, but mainly oxytocin. A lot of you probably have heard of oxytocin before. Susan, what's...
this is not Oxycontin.
Yeah, Oxycontin is...
That's really different.
So, but they both start with oxy.
Yeah, they do.
That's just because of their chemical structure.
Yeah, I didn't look up the molecular diagram before we started, but I don't know what the connection is there, but they are two totally different things.
So, as I'm sure most of the audience already knows, Susan, what is oxytocin?
Well, can I tell a little story?
Yes, you may tell a story.
A couple of weeks ago, we had Paul Zak on our show, and Paul Zak is the author of the book The Moral Molecule, and if you haven't listened to that show, you should listen to it. He's wonderful. And the moral molecule that he talks about in his book is oxytocin. And then today in the mail, this was cute, I got a word from him just thanking me for some stuff, which is amazing. You don't get regular mail anymore that somebody hand wrote a note. It was like thrilling. But in there he also had a small bottle. I'm holding it in my hand right now. It says oxytocin 10 milliliters, but it's empty. It is empty, but I thought
that was our inspiration today. Because
we got that. So and we had oxytocin on our list of things to maybe do a podcast on. What?
Well, okay. I have a question. I'm going to bank it. Talk about oxytocin first, and then I will ask a related question.
Okay.
I'm going to bank it.
So, oxytocin is often called the bonding chemical. So, oxytocin is a chemical that your brain releases into your body at certain times, and it releases when you are bonding with another person, or actually like another animal too, because it'll get released. We'll talk about animals in a minute, but so
it's not a human thing; it's a mammalian. Is it reptiles or is it just?
No, it's a mammal.
It's a mammalian thing.
Some mammals, not all mammals. Yeah, some mammals. So, if you
humans, by the way, are mammals.
Yeah.
For those of you keeping score at home.
Oh yes. Humans are mammals. So if you hug a friend, if you, stroke the face of your bee, if you, those are, we're going to talk about all the ways that oxytocin is released. Those are the most obvious, easiest ways. And so when you're doing this physical touch with another person, your brain releases this chemical, oxytocin, and that makes you feel close. It makes you feel loving. And so the people that you hug and the people that you stroke are the people you end up feeling like you love them. That's what makes that bond. That's what makes that feeling of, oh, I really feel connected to this person. It's the oxytocin that's actually making you do that. Now, interestingly, it also released in some other acts besides, hugging and stroking, so we'll talk about that too. But do you want to ask your question yet, or should I keep going?
Keep going.
Okay.
We're not quite there yet.
We're not quite there. So, for instance, and I think we talked about this with Paul Zak. If you pet a dog, that's like stroking, and it's soft, and that'll make you release oxytocin. And the research shows that the dog will also release oxytocin. So there's an example of a mammal that, reacts very similar to the way the human does. And we also talked, I think, when he was on about the fact that the cat will sometimes release oxytocin. You'll release oxytocin if you stroke the cat, and the cat will sometimes release it, but not as much as a dog.
I know. We really try with cats.
They
We
just,
really try.
yeah, it just doesn't, it's not the same. And if you cuddle with a stuffed animal, they're soft and fuzzy. That could very likely release oxytocin. But we also know that oxytocin is released when you do synchronous activities with other people, like when you do drumming, like a drum circle, when you sing in a choir, when you play in a band, when you dance. If you all have synchronous activity, that also releases oxytocin. So doing things together with other humans, especially in that rhythmic way, also bonds people together.
Which, and obviously, if we just jump into the quick, let's play Darwin, why is this a thing role, this would be very important. You want mothers to take care of their children and not abandon the child.
Right. And you want children to be connected to the parents so that they'll hang around and stay taken care of and not get themselves into.
Right. And think about other social species. So, for example, dogs, right? You're hunting in a pack of wolves. You need for the dogs to have a connection with each other so that group tasks can happen more effectively.
And so that they'll protect them.
Yes.
Because that's part of it too. You'll protect the people that you're, or the animal, or the part, thing in your tribe that you're connected to. Now we even, you and I were talking, I think last week, because we were working on our presentations we're putting together, and we were talking about it's so important to connect with other people that you can actually die if you don't.
So this is some fun research. For those of you looking to really steep yourselves in Romanian orphanage research, we have the research for you.
Yeah, so the research, well, there's two pieces of interesting, okay. Well, there's more than two, but two areas of research around this, how important is it that we socially bond with other people? And one is that there's something called failure to thrive syndrome. Usually, it could apply to adults, but it usually applies to babies. And the idea is that if a young human, an infant or a toddler does not have enough connection, and that means physical touch and interaction with another person, at least one person, it actually their immune system starts to shut down, and in some cases it just means that they withdraw and they get sick. But in up to a third of the cases, this means that they could actually die. Now that this is obviously not a controlled experiment, we don't take half the babies in the study and refuse to interact with them, and half the babies we do. But it's just in situations where researchers have been able to study this in situations where babies are getting food, their basic needs are taken care of in terms of food and water to drink and that, but they're just, for a variety of reasons, they're not getting any social connection, and they sometimes die from that. So that's one kind of series of studies, and then the other series of studies about
I just wanted to say, well, go ahead. I'll save my point.
In the other series of studies about adults, we know that now there's some new research coming out that if adults don't have enough social connection in their lives, it affects their immune system and their inflammatory system, and then they will tend to get kind of the chronic diseases like diabetes and heart heart disease, and they can actually die younger because they don't have enough social connection. So that's how very important social connection is, and oxytocin is a real important part of that. Now, at some point, we have to talk about what this has to do with technology. But
so, the thing that you need to understand from those listening is that the body needs certain things to function. We have biological mechanisms that rely on certain proteins and certain molecules. And we get these certain proteins and molecules in a variety of ways. Consumption, right, of vitamins is one way we get it. Or like cholesterol, right? We get cholesterol from eating things. But we also make cholesterol naturally. We can make a lot of different chemicals in the body. And a chemical like oxytocin it's apparently just a chemical that we need for our bodies to function properly. And so again, without it, our immune systems start to fail, and then you get a disease and you die. And the way we consume basically oxytocin is in a bunch of different ways, but of course the main one is social interaction. So just like you would eat green leafy vegetables to get your vitamins, it's important to be able to have connections and bond with something, at least, whether it's a pet or a fuzzy robot or a human. They have to have some sort of social connection to be a healthy human. So that, the idea that just because it happens in the brain, it therefore doesn't, can't affect your health because, it's just all mental, is not true. So,
didn't you go all biologists here?
Is that what happened? Thank you.
No, I like that.
So
no, it's really it is true. And when we talk about it's just mental, I mean, your brain is not outside your body. So yeah, there, if you're talking about things that are going on mentally, if you're talking about social connections, if you're talking about relationships and feelings, that's all in the body, and that has to do with all of these, chemicals that your brain is releasing. They're going all through your body. So yeah, it is all physical. Yep.
So,
yeah.
So what is do we know the mechanism? Like, what does it do when oxytocin is released?
I don't know that I can say. I am not enough of a neurochemist to tell you, or a biologist to tell you, the oxytocin is released and then it does, goes here and goes there and connects with this molecule and that molecule. I don't know. I just know that when it gets released, you get a feeling of that you care, right, and a feeling of attachment towards whatever object tends to be in front of you. It's like a magic potion. You drink the love potion, and then the first person you look at is the person you fall in love with, right? It's kind of like that.
So this is what I was trying to figure out. Let's say let's say instead of an empty vial, he sent you a full vial of oxytocin.
Yeah.
Again, you got an empty vial of oxytocin in the mail.
Yeah.
And yet you guzzled it down.
Well, I think it would not. I wouldn't be guzzling it. It would be
injecting it straight into the bloodstream.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would happen? And let's assume it's not a little dose. Let's assume it's a pretty big dose.
Well, I don't know. And first of all, don't try this at home, okay? We're not suggesting you try this out. I don't know. I mean, I can tell you there are actually, and let's look at some of the times So it is actually a situation where oxytocin is injected into people. So if you are a woman in labor or close to labor, you get oxytocin. That's if anyone's listening that had an induced labor and they were injected with a chemical called Pitocin, Pitocin. That's oxytocin. It's just, I don't know why they changed the name, but and so it'll actually induce labor if you're pregnant and almost ready to induce labor.
That's pretty crazy.
It is. If you are a nursing mother and you start nursing your baby, oxytocin is released, so it helps your milk be available, and then of course you feel lovingly towards the baby that's nursing. That's kind of crazy. We know, when we did our episode on stories, we actually talked a little bit about oxytocin. I don't know if you remember this, but we talked about the story arc, and when you get to the top of the story arc and it's the climax of the story, and if you if you're feeling empathy, the reason you would feel empathy for the character is that oxytocin is released. So then you feel like, oh, I hope he makes it. I hope he makes it. That's actually oxytocin. So if I were to, if I were to have oxytocin injected into me, I would feel very bonded and very loving and very connected to anybody that happened to be around me at the moment, and maybe even inanimate objects. So it could be quite dangerous. Do not. Why are you planning on buying some on the black market? And
no, it's just very interesting
it out on unsuspecting
to
people?
see what it would do. Now, would that effect last? Do we because it would be a memory?
It wouldn't last. I see what you're saying.
Would it burn it in, and then once you process the oxytocin, next time you saw the person, it would just be there. I'm thinking of so let's say your relationship's not doing great. Why take Viagra when you can get an injection of oxytocin straight into the brain? It just jumpstart that relationship.
Wow.
But seriously though.
You could if you got an injection of oxytocin.
You would feel connected.
You would tend to feel connected and loving, and it would I don't know exactly how long it lasts. Probably 10 to 20 minutes. Maybe if Paul listens to this podcast, he'll write in and let us know if I have that right or not. And it would, you would have a memory trace formed about it. Now, if it just happened one time, and you had one memory trace, that probably wouldn't be a very strong memory. But if you interact with that person again, oxytocin is released again, that would strengthen that memory trace, and again and again and again. So eventually get to the point where you will remember that person lovingly, even if perhaps you're not around them anymore, right? Or even if, we all have had the experience of having a breakup with someone, right? Yeah. And in fact, we've all had the experience of having a breakup and feeling like we kind of hate, kind of love them at the same time, right? So we have that memory, right, of the strong bonding feeling, even if the relationship changed and we don't like them anymore. That memory is still there. So the memory of it will last a while, I would think.
Interesting.
Yeah. So do you want to talk? Do you have any more questions about it, or do you want to talk about what this has to do with technology? Because this is supposed to be a podcast about humans and technology.
Yeah, I know. So I just wanted to lay down that benchmark, that establishment. So because the question is, and this is why things get interesting. We talked about how humans will bond with animals, but like dogs and somewhat cats, well, cats too, but in different ways, we are very socially flexible creatures. We have the ability to bond with just about anything. So the question is that I'll ask you, even though I know the answer. Do we bond with technology?
Listen, I really, you know the answer to this? I would say we do, but I'm not sure. But it's not always, or I would say it's not even usually because of oxytocin. I think we bond with technology more because of another brain chemical, which is dopamine, and more for the reasons that I think it was last week when we were talking with Nir,
yes,
al, and we were talking about forming habits and using technology habitually, and even becoming addicted to technology. And that's a different chemical in that to happen, which is dopamine. So, I think we do bond with technology, but not always because of oxytocin. Now, there's some kinds of technology, you see, that we would bond using oxytocin, and others that we wouldn't. So if we are having there's these little robot animals, that are soft and furry.
Yes.
And that are being used, for instance, with the elderly who are lonely, right? If you have someone who's older and they're in a nursing home, they don't have any family anymore, and maybe all their friends have passed away, and they don't have a lot of social connection. And we talked about the medical and emotional problems that can cause. So and they might not be able, because of where they live or because of some kind of disability, they might not be able to take care of an actual pet.
Yeah.
But you can give them a robot pet, that it might be like a dog, it might be like that, and it might make noise, and it moves a little, and it might make noises like a dog or cat, and it's strokeable, right? And it kind of moves and reacts to the stroking, and that would cause an oxytocin release. So that's a form of technology that people would bond with. I don't think that's how you meant the question, but that would cause oxytocin release. And I think some humanoid type social robots. There's a social robot called Pepper.
Aww.
What?
Pepper.
Pepper. It's created by a Japanese company, and Pepper's not interesting because it's not soft and fuzzy. Okay.
Yeah.
Pepper's hard, metal, plastic. Pepper, I think, is about not quite 5 feet tall. Pepper talks, and Pepper hugs. You can hug Pepper. There's enough things about, and it's actually meant to be a sociable robot. It actually responds to human emotion from facial. It'll recognize human emotion on the human's face, and also in the tone of voice. So it reacts kind of human-like, and so people then react to it like a little human-like. And so I suspect, I don't have any research that's measured whether oxytocin is being released when people interact with Pepper, but it's possible in that situation that people might have an oxytocin release and then become attached to Pepper. So in that sense, I think it is possible to have oxytocin is forming relationships. So I have my cell phone right here. I'm picking it up. I'm looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
So the cell phone isn't fuzzy. My cell phone isn't fuzzy. Maybe your cell phone is fuzzy. Maybe we should make fuzzy cell phones.
It's smooth.
Yeah, smooth is not the same. Smooth is not the same.
Ah,
It doesn't
okay.
feel.
Hold on.
There's nothing human about it.
It sometimes is warm.
Yeah, it's still not. It's still not human. I wonder, though, it'd be interesting if someone made. I'm sure that someone's making like fuzzy cell phone covers, but not probably in order to get oxytocin released. But that would be interesting. But here's what I'm wondering. You made me think, because I don't think that we'd be releasing oxytocin when we're holding our cell phone. However, if my husband sends me a text, right, that says, how's your day going? I hope it's going well. Just wanted to tell you how much I love you, right? Some nice text like that. And then I would read the text and I would go, oh, that's so sweet, right? And then I would release some oxytocin while I'm holding my phone. And I'm wondering if that happened enough, not just with that, but, then I get a text from a friend and, because a lot of our interactions with our phones are social connections, which would release some oxytocin. I wonder if we'd have a conditioned response, and maybe that's why people become as attached to their phones as they do. Maybe it's not just dopamine. Maybe there's a connection. Conditioned response means, if you remember about, I don't know if we've talked about this, but Ivan Pavlov in the year like 1900 he was studying digestion and saliva in dogs. Have we talked about this on the podcast?
I don't know. You can tell it again to all the folks at home.
Okay.
We probably have, but
in case they haven't heard this. Well, if you've taken psychology as an undergraduate, did you take psychology when you were in college?
Yes, I did.
So you may have learned about Ivan Pavlov. So the years around 1900, he's a biologist. He's studying digestion and saliva in dogs. And he was very interested in the idea that when you fed the dog and the dog ate some meat, it would produce saliva. I know that doesn't sound very exciting, but that's what he was studying. And then he noticed that the dog didn't even have to eat the meat. If the dog saw the meat, it would start salivating. And then he noticed that the dog didn't even have to see the meat. If the dog heard the bell on the door that rang when the worker came in to feed the dog, just hearing the bell would make the dog salivate. So that's called a conditioned response. The meat was paired in the dog's mind with the bell, to the point where now the meat didn't even have to be present, just the bell ringing made the dog salivate. So we call that a conditioned response. So I'm wondering if, and that's how habits are formed and so on, I'm wondering if our connection to our cell phone is partially a paired connection between attachment and oxytocin and the phone, because there's so much social connection coming from the phone. And that's why we love it so much. And that's why in the morning when we wake up, we reach for our phone to see if we have any messages,
right,
and so on.
Well,
right?
Yeah. I think that makes all the sense in the world. There's I think that personally, I don't know so much about this phone. Definitely when I was younger, I feel like I would get emotionally attached to my phone.
Wait a minute, more when you were younger than you do now?
Yes.
So why is that? I know why. It's because you used to have an iPhone.
Yes.
Now you have an Android phone.
That's right.
And so so iPhones are better.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. Or I was just a teenager and my hormones were much stronger than perhaps they are now. Or perhaps the mental model of how I communicate is different now.
Do you think it has anything to do with the size of the phone? I mean, you have one of the larger phones, right?
Yes.
Do you think it seems more like a computer?
Like a what?
Computer. No.
It's more like a window.
Hmm.
So like I feel like a really small phone is almost more like a watch. It's like a notification device, but also has like a screen and you can do stuff on it. I think a really big phone, I don't know. It's more like a book. You're holding it, you kind of read it, you flip through stuff.
But you do use it for social connection.
Yeah, all the time.
But somehow you don't feel socially connected to it as you used to. As you used to on a previous phone, which was smaller and was actually an iPhone.
Yes, but I think I felt connection with my Motorola Razr that was not a smartphone even before then. It was a flip phone. Text messages.
Oh, and you did use it to connect. I mean, mainly you were using it to connect with your friend.
Really, that was kind of its only use, honestly. it was a flip
really
phone.
Interesting. I wonder. Okay, I have another theory.
Sure.
So when you had your little small flip razor,
right? I was only using it for
you were only using it to connect with your friends.
Correct. There you go. Yes.
All right.
And now I almost never use my phone to connect with my friends.
Now,
like,
okay, because
proportionally, right? So like, yeah, right. I'm connecting more than I ever have, but I read the news. I'm playing games. Yeah, see, that's what. Okay, I'm reading other like Snap stories, which are not exactly right. They're not to me. They're just kind of videos.
Okay, so here's my theory. Because I'm not kidding about going from the iPhone to the phone you have now. What is the phone you have now?
It's about 2 years old. It is back when Google actually owned Motorola for that hot second, the good old days. It is the Motorola Nexus 6.
Okay, and it's a larger.
No, it's basically the largest phone you can get. It's got a 6-inch screen. In fact, the Nexus 6X, which is its successor, only has a 5.5-inch screen. So they actually made the screen smaller. People complain that the screen was too big, but I love it.
You like it?
It's probably the size of. It's probably a little bit larger than the iPhone 6 Plus, and about the size of a Galaxy Note. So it's a 6-inch screen. But it has a fairly small bezel, so the footprint is actually quite small. I think like the iPhone 6s Plus might be a larger device, but the screen is. But
when you went from a regular iPhone, you went from an
iPhone 3GS, which had a 3.5-inch screen.
Yeah, small screen, smaller,
tiny.
You went from that to the one you have now. So
it's almost 4 times larger.
Yeah. So when you went to the larger phone, you started proportionally. Here's my theory. In terms of the amount of time you spend doing things. My guess is when you had the smaller phone, you used it more for connecting with others, and you used like your laptop more for reading the news, going online, looking things up, doing the computer type stuff rather than the social connection type stuff.
Absolutely.
And then when you had the bigger phone, I mean, it's like, I've seen your phone. It's great, and the screen is great, and it's clear, and I'd use it more too, right? I don't have one. I'm still walking around with my smaller iPhone, but by doing that,
more importantly than just the screen size is the resolution.
Yeah.
So it has a 1440p resolution. So the number of pixels on it actually there's more pixels on my phone than there is on my laptop. So looking at my phone at hand's length is actually a clearer picture. I can read text and do things clear than even on my laptop, even though the laptop's a large screen.
Well, your laptop is a little bit old.
Yeah, it's a 1080p screen. It's just not.
So
It's not 1440.
so I'm thinking that's why you, but see, this is interesting. I'm thinking that as when we did that, then we don't become as attached to the phone.
This makes a lot of sense. So to the listeners out there, think back to all the technology devices you ever owned. Which ones did you really, really, truly love? And which ones do you only have a congenial relationship with? Is that the right word?
Ooh, that's a good word.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So, all right, I'm thinking
and what's the proportion of social interaction? And now, question with oxytocin. So let's say I'm reading, for example, I went to the University of Wisconsin. I follow on Instagram Sam Decker. He's a basketball player currently playing for he was injured, but signed with the Houston Rockets. And I look at his Instagram feed, and he's got a picture of him with another guy, and they're waving at the camera. Do I release oxytocin by looking at that, or do I need to receive like a personalized message from him, being like, "Check out this thing"?
It depends. Okay. It doesn't have to be a personalized message. It doesn't have to be an actual connected interaction with that person. Remember, we said when you are watching a movie or listening to a story and you feel empathy for the character, you will release oxytocin. Okay? So it doesn't have to be a two-way, right? It doesn't have to be a personal message to you. I mean, having said that, though, I don't know if just looking at a picture of him is going to release oxytocin.
It'd have to be a picture in context of a story.
Yeah, I mean, a video is more likely because a video is more likely to have the story and then release it. And also, I think we're talking again about the memory. Okay, so if you get an Instagram or you see a picture of a loved one, okay,
right,
someone that you love, that you have had an oxytocin release with in real life, in person, then that memory trace could cause an oxytocin release as well. So pictures could, but it just kind of depends. They won't always.
So here are a couple thoughts.
Yeah.
Thought number one, I don't want to. I think the phone thing is an interesting point, and therefore, if you wanted to make a product that people really loved, you should make a product that only does human interaction.
Yeah.
But that would be the winningest product. People would really love.
With a fuzzy cover.
With a fuzzy cover. Hey, I was alive when Tamagotchis were a thing.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and it makes a noise.
Yeah, like Tamagotchi was a big deal. I had one and then I dropped it in a snowbank, so then it was dead. So that's
and
my
it died?
That's my Tamagotchi story.
And you were probably traumatized by that.
That was really quite sad, yeah. So we just need to make a social network that you can only communicate through a physical device, and that physical device is fuzzy.
Yeah.
And it would be wildly successple. We should probably
I think this would be wildly popular. It's too bad we talked about this on the podcast, because I think we should keep this quiet and
no, we said it here first. Trademark. Trademarks. Patents. Okay.
The lawyer here. The Guthrie,
I know that's not actually how patents work, but.
Oh. Yeah. But I think you might be right. I think that's a really interesting point. And I think it speaks to this thing in general, about universal machines versus tons of little devices. This was a big conversation and argument back. Here I go dating myself again. Back like around the early 90s.
Yeah.
And I think it might have been Don Norman, who's a very famous human-computer interaction, human factors guy, who first started talking about, the fact that we were going to have all these devices. We weren't going to see. We were starting to lean towards, at that point, a computer that did everything. Okay.
Yeah, a word processor.
It's a it does your word processing. It does your spreadsheets. It it connects you to AOL through your modem dial-up. It does everything. You do your PowerPoint presentations, you do your accounting. One machine does everything, and that's where we were heading. That's what we had, and we still had like telephones, but the computer was going to do everything. And the question was, will it stay like that, or will we end up with a lot of little devices that all do their own thing? And the analogy back then was the universal motor. So there's a Sears and I think it's Sears and Roebuck catalog product catalog that shows you could buy, I think this was probably around 1920, you could buy a universal motor, and it looked like a upright vacuum cleaner. It probably was basically an upright vacuum cleaner, but you could buy attachments. So you could buy the vacuum attachment, you could buy the blender attachment, you could buy the fan attachment. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely. And they had they kind of do the same thing now, where they have the stand mixers.
Yeah, but this was more than just a kitchen appliance. This was a big thing.
Right.
And so that was what you bought. But then of course it turned into, no, buy a vacuum cleaner, buy a fan, buy a blender, right? You ended up, how many electrical appliances do you
the funny thing is that they all do the same. They all have the same motor in them. It's all just a Tesla electric motor.
It's a motor, and you plug it in, and it's a switch.
Fan and a blender, and like it's all the same.
And the vacuum cleaner, it's all the same. So that analogy was used when,
right.
Like I said in this transition about the computer, and Don Norman said, no, and we're not all going to have one universal machine. We're going to have different machines that are going to do these different things. And I think in many ways, not totally, but in many ways, he was right, because you have your computer, but then you have your tablet, and then you have your smartphone, and then you have your Apple Watch, and then you have all these other devices, and now we have Internet of Things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so I like this idea of a dedicated social connection fuzzy device, and it has to be small enough to hold in your hand and put in your pocket. It's probably small cell phone size, but all it does is connect you socially. So there you go. There's our latest idea.
All right.
And then you get oxytocin release.
Now I want to do a test here.
I don't think it should look like a phone. I think it should look like a little stuffed.
Yes, it should look like a stuffed animal.
All right. What's your test?
So. Now, Susan, I don't know if you'll be able to hear this, but I'm going to do a test for all of our listeners out there. So, listeners, I'm going to play a sound, and I want you just to close your eyes and think of the past. And when you hear the sound, analyze your emotions. See if you get a burst of something. A suite of memories, a feeling of connection. Okay? So this is going to be number one.
You've got mail.
Okay. Now that probably sucked. Now, but Susan, if you didn't know, I played the AOL You've Got Mail thing.
Yeah.
And then here, this one. Well, these all suck. I'm sorry. I tried to get, I just did the AOL Instant Messenger, the buddy arriving. What I'd like to do. Well, I tried. This was going to be cool.
You could edit these in.
There we go. I did it. Okay, this one. Okay, so this was, I would say, a failed experiment. And to the listeners out there, I apologize. But maybe it brought some of the memories back. I just the idea that these old that the notifications and the sounds from back in the day when you used like AOL Instant Messenger, where literally the only thing you were using it for was talking.
Yeah.
If it just brings back memories. Now maybe it's too long. Maybe it's been, sound is an especially fickle thing.
No. Sound would have your sound memories actually are pretty stable
Compared to smell?
Well, no, smell is totally different than anything because smell goes. All right, so when you see something or when you hear something or when you have a touch memory, that goes to the cortex, the higher level of the brain for processing. But your sense of smell and then partially your sense of taste, because taste depends partially on your olfactory system, that does not go to your cortex. It bypasses your cortex and goes right to the deeper and more primitive areas of your brain. So it gets processed faster and stronger and is more closely associated with memory. But hearing, you definitely, when you hear something, just think about your reaction when you hear the song that was, your song with your friends or with your boyfriend or girlfriend when you were in high school, and all those feelings that just come, all those memories and all those feelings that come flooding back. Definitely, auditory memories can definitely evoke feelings, not as much as smell. I agree.
I don't know. Maybe I was using like MSN Instant Messenger or something. When I played the AOL IM sound, which that's this one right here. It's not doing anything for me. It's really not.
Oh.
And
well.
So I don't know if that's just me.
Yeah, that's just you.
Maybe that's just me.
You're just.
It's possible I didn't use it. I mean, I know we had AOL at a long time ago, and that does sound familiar, but it's possible I did most of my connection with like MSN, Hotmail Instant Messenger. I don't even remember what it was called.
Yeah, I don't think that you. I don't. My guess is that you were not a big AOL user.
Interesting.
That's my guess. So that's why it didn't do anything for you.
Or maybe I just had my sound off the whole time. maybe I just didn't have sound notifications on.
So have we answered all your oxytocin questions?
Hello. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I like the hoping to do more brain science episodes.
Yeah.
Here now I have one more thought. Okay. So is there an oxytocin inhibitor? And maybe you don't know the answer to that.
You mean, is there something that stops you from feeling oxytocin?
Yes, either stops the creation or stops it from or stops it from binding. Like the way an SSRN inhibitor works.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, certainly there are people and situations and histories, like histories of trauma. I'm talking about psychological trauma, PTSD, neglect, abuse, that kind of thing, and where people don't bond. Okay,
Yeah.
but I think that would be more instance of, for a variety of reasons, not producing and releasing oxytocin. Don't know if it's because oxytocin is released but then gets subverted. But I am really at this point guessing.
So I mean, it's just the potential for that would just be pretty nuts, right? It would be, if you had an oxytocin inhibitor, you'd have a molecule that once in the bloodstream would prevent you from feeling affection to anything or anyone.
Yeah.
So obviously,
that happens to people. But I don't know that it's an oxytocin inhibitor that causes it.
No. I don't think it exists. But if you had one, right? If you like, I don't know. I'm just thinking of interesting potential uses for it. I feel like there are weird military applications and.
Yeah, I hear you. I have another question.
Like doctors could.
Look, I'm going to turn that around.
Yeah.
Do you think you could give machines oxytocin and then they would love us?
Well,
probably not.
Probably not. That's because it's really complicated. Because once you have the having oxytocin is the feeling.
Yeah.
And so you'd have to have a sense of consciousness high enough to.
You have to have a biology that would allow you to feel.
I feel like there are easier. I feel like you would start with dopamine first.
Do you think we can inject oxytocin into cats and then they'll love us?
Okay, now that is an interesting idea. No, I'm serious, because you can't really train. You can train cats, but it is difficult. And so just imagine that instead of like. So, okay. Let's do some cat stuff, right? Dogs obviously just love you, and you can pet them and they love you. But cats only sometimes do it. Now, from what I've read, is that the best, if you'd like to socialize your cats to be very affectionate and friendly and sit on your lap and all that kind of stuff, the best way to do it is obviously you get them when they're kittens, when they're really, really young, before they're scared of humans. And you just love the crap out of them. You just hold them and hug them and pet them, and you like hold them literally just as much as you possibly can during the early days of their infancy.
You're probably just getting a lot of oxytocin release.
And because they're so young, their neural pathways are so flexible that normally later in life, that's, maybe those pathways are a little more shut and it'll only release for the mother. But if you can get a kitten early enough, then it's going to be released for the human. And then for the rest of the cat's life, it's got an oxytocin response to human petting and human touch. So the thought is when you adopt your kitten, is you get the kitten in the room, and they inject, they have the oxytocin room, they inject the cat with oxytocin, and then you by the way, do you know the half-life? How long does oxytocin fade? Do we know? Or
you
how
asked
quickly?
me that before. I thought I'm guessing about 10 to 20 minutes.
Yeah, right. So I just wanted to double check. So you're in the room and you inject the cat with oxytocin, and then you hold the cat and you pet the cat for 20 minutes. the cat's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, bonding. And you make the pathways. And then for the rest of the cat's life, the cat will release oxytocin easily when you pet the cat.
Okay, so here's what we have to find out. We have to find out whether oxytocin can be inhaled. Because then you could have an oxytocin spray.
Right.
And then you would spray it on the cat's face or near the human that you want to bond with you. We're going to, between the fuzzy social action device and the oxytocin love potion spray, you and I we're going to take off on these two inventions.
Sergey, Bryn, call me. We need to ask our researcher friends. They have answers for this, because
Paul Zach is the one to go to, so we'll go back to Paul.
Yeah,
and we'll ask him these questions.
Yeah, that's right.
And maybe
he sent you a bottle of oxytocin, so you must know what's going on.
Although it was empty, but he did send me a bottle. All right.
Yeah. Paul. Can we make a lot of money?
Yeah. We're gonna
tricking cats into loving us.
We'll let you know. We'll let our audience know what he said. We'll try this out. And on that note, I think we're done.
Just first of all, no. Think of all the applications.
No.
You're a lawyer in the room, right? And you're trying to get your client acquitted.
Yeah,
he's being charged with double murder. And in closing arguments, he from in his sleeve he's got like a spray, and no one can see it, and he releases it while he's leaning over talking to the jury. The jury just feels this pang of guilt.
Maybe it's already happening. We have to find out whether it has an effect, because a lot of chemicals have an effect.
Sure.
If they can go through.
I mean,
they can get
heroin. Doesn't heroin mimic dopamine? Is that how heroin works?
No, they're very different.
Okay.
But
heroin mimics something. That's why it's heroin.
Okay. Well, this is actually getting a little dangerous.
So the point is that we talk a lot about ethics. I feel like if you had but I'm serious.
I feel like they've gone out the window.
No, but if you had I don't want to, a weaponized oxytocin distribution mechanism, I feel like you could really take advantage of people, because you could make them.
You could end war.
Or you could start war.
No, I guess you could. But you could spray it when you're about to be attacked, and then the person who's going to attack you decides they love you instead.
Well, but that's really hard. But I actually already did this thought process. The problem is that it might make them bond with their comrades more, and they're not right, because when you're at modern warfare, it's not face to face. You're just pressing a button.
Yeah, it only. Right.
So I don't think that would.
Yeah.
I don't think that would necessarily prevent, but maybe in like the higher ups.
But you could do it instead of nerve gas.
How about this? Instead of pepper spray to ward off potential attackers, oxytocin spray.
Yeah.
Right? They're gonna come and beat you up and rape you. Just hit them with that, and all of a sudden they'll just have this like burst of feelings.
They love you.
Well,
they care about you.
No, but they care, and they all of a sudden are so embarrassed about what they're about to do, they just run away.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty interesting. Of course, the worst is love potion, right? You go on a Tinder date, and when the person gets up to go to the bathroom, you spike their margarita with a bunch of oxytocin.
And then
this first day, the texting in the bathroom, it's really
really
going well. I feel so close already. Yeah.
I'm starting to regret that I told you about any of this.
Yeah, go ask Paul where I can get myself a bottle. Well,
I'm gonna find out if it's
especially if it can be aerated in powdered form, and if it can be and if what happens when you ingest it, and also if you can, if it has to be injected into the bloodstream, or for perhaps you could.
You want to just write down your questions and I'll email them to him. Take
it orally or through like the nasal passages.
Yeah, I get it. What did we just unleash onto the world?
Probably. I mean, look, if you think
probably nothing.
Like perfume companies, I bet you can go on Amazon right now. Or let's see. Yeah. There's a bunch of. I'm looking at a place, Vero Labs. Pioneering oxytocin sprays since 2006.
As in an aerated form?
So let's look at Attract for her. That's spelled ATTRAKT. Attract.
No.
That's what it is. That's actually for women. So when it says for her, it's not. That's confusing. It's not to attract women. It's actually for women. It's not a powder. It appears to be a spray. It's $80 a bottle.
Too weird. I'm going to talk to Paul. He'll know the truth.
Oh my God. By the way.
What?
This is interesting.
Yeah.
This is actually very interesting. So, why oxytocin, it says. This is at their website, www.verolabs.com. Okay, so oxytocin is a naturally occurring hormone strongly linked to facilitating human bonding and relationships. Vero Labs' unique oxytocin formulas are designed to heighten and enhance these experiences. Oxytocin has been linked to many studies to be a key element in facilitating bonding in humans. Played a pivotal role in the successful bonding between newborn babies and their mothers, as well as other family members. In 2005, a study by Paul J. Zak linked the hormone to feelings of trust in humans.
Yeah, we know that.
Look at that. We say it, and the first website that pops up actually specifically mentions Paul.
Wow, Paul is the oxytocin guy.
They say spray it on everything.
Okay.
Clothing, fabrics, neck, collars, shirts, scarves, pillowcases, blankets.
Oh my God. Okay, we've gone too far.
Very interesting, though. It does appear to just be a liquid. It would need to be, like a powdered, aerated form. Would definitely be interesting. I'd like to know if Paul thinks this stuff works.
Yeah, I definitely want to know that. So we're going to ask him, and then we'll tell everybody else what we found out.
I've gone long. I apologize.
Yes, you have. We're done.
Okay, yeah, we're done. This was quite the podcast. Thanks everyone for listening.
Oh, hey, you know what?
What?
Let's remind them that they should give us a rating and so on, so that we can.
Just about to do that.
Okay, good.
So, whatever device you're on, whatever software you use, rate our podcast, give us 5 stars so that more people listen to it. Share it with everyone. We should probably be doing a better job of that. We will be in Atlanta and we'll be in North Carolina in the next couple of weeks. So if you're interested, check out our website, teamw.com. On the speaking section of our website, we actually list all of our upcoming events. And if you have any questions or comments, email us at info@theteamw.com. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's it.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for this very interesting...
crazy podcast.
Yeah, good. Thanks for listening. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye.